So let me show you what I got today, and then also the patterning progress so far, and just give you a bit of an overview of where I'm headed with this costume, hopefully. The product that I'm most excited about that I got today is this plastic poultry netting. I went in looking for the classic metal netting, which is very sharp, so you have to make sure you're careful to finish all the edges. But then I saw this, and I was just thrilled because it has kind of the same texture as the metal stuff. It will hold its shape somewhat. It does kind of bend and fold, as you can see here. But it's not sharp, it's super, super lightweight, which is really, really important for this project because I'm a small person, I'm making this huge costume. I need to be able to wear it reasonably comfortably. So all of these parts with the armor and all the fabric and then all the support structure underneath, this is going to add up really fast. So to find a product like this that is so lightweight is extremely, extremely exciting. And what I'm planning to use this for is for molding the shoulders that then will have the arms off of the sides that are on joints. But I need the shoulders to be a solid piece that all of that fabric can hang on. And then also the piece that will serve as a head, which will support the mask portion, that's going to rest on top of those shoulders also. And then hopefully I'm planning tentatively to maybe have a pipe that's going up through those shoulders into the head that then attaches to a helmet on my head. So hopefully I can have actual mobility with the head of the costume, even though it's going to be about 2 feet above my own head. So I haven't tried anything with this yet, but it looks really, really promising, and I'm hoping that it will work for what I have in mind. And then I'm also thinking I'll probably end up covering it in some paper mache in areas where I need it to be, stiffer and have a little more bulk to it. So that's why I bought this ginormous jug of wood glue. Wood glue is amazing. You can sand it. It's pretty much waterproof. Another thing that I was super excited about because I wasn't sure if it existed, plastic chain. Because, man, okay, so I want to make that big, I guess it would be like a mace or I can't think of the right word right now. It would be, a flail. I want to make his big flail that has the ginormous, spiky end to it. But that thing's going to get really, really heavy really fast. And I'm going to be wearing these gloves, so it's going to be difficult to carry. I want it to be lightweight. So I have my first step in making that lightweight flail mace thing because this chain, very, very lightweight, and yet it still seems quite strong. Regular metal chain is so heavy. There was no way. So obviously this is going to have to be modified a little bit because it has these little spikes in the film. So I will be working with this, painting it and whatnot, but it's just cool. And then of course, classic, I got some spray foam because I'm at some point going to need that for this costume. I mean, this is fantastic stuff because you spray it on, you let it dry, and you can just carve in all these shapes. It gives it bulk without making it super heavy. And then also I'm thinking probably for the shoes, I'm going to need to make a shoe that's bigger than my actual foot. So I'm going to, again, pull from Adam Savage's video. When he was making those feet for his bear, this is what he used. He put his own shoe, put spray foam inside the fur casing, and they were very lightweight, he said, so I'm going to try that. The other thing that I got is PVC. And okay, it's not that exciting of a product on its own, but what I'm using it for is going to be really fun because I'm going to use the PVC to create the actual bones for the Witch King. Because I don't need his arms to actually be that big and bulky. I can do something like maybe some of this stuff to keep the drapery looking like there's a body underneath. But the actual arm itself that I'm going to be wanting to move, I want that to be lightweight. So I've got this thin PVC and I'm going to be cutting it down, and then I'm probably going to be 3D printing some joints because I've got to make sure that I get a decent range of motion with this. I want it to be fairly convincing. But the way that it's going to work, the shoulders are going to be, 2 feet above my shoulders or so. Then his arms are going to come down. My hands will actually go in at his hands and be, up higher than my natural hands would be, so he doesn't look too out of proportion. But the arms themselves are going to be, starting way above my natural arm. I'm still going to need joints in there so that when I move my arm like this, the casing on the outside of me moves in a fairly convincing way underneath all of that robe that he's got going on. So this is actually a 10-foot long piece that I got for a couple of dollars. So it's a super inexpensive material to work with. I haven't worked with it before, so I am extremely, extremely excited to combine that with some 3D printed joints and whatnot and see what might be possible for this. Over here, this is my first attempt at creating the piece that's gonna go, over my head, rest on my shoulders, obviously with padding, but this piece right here, all it is when you see those signs stuck on the side of the road and they got those metal posts. This is just one of those. So this was free from an old sign, and I have just bent this one into a shape that fits onto my shoulders. So I'm thinking this is going to be a good starting point for building up from and building the shoulders out up here and then adding the head on top. It all is going to need to join securely to something that rests comfortably on my shoulders, because I most certainly don't want the weight of the helmet and whatnot and all of that drapery. I don't want that resting on my head. That would be highly, highly uncomfortable. Speaking of the helmet, this is my first mock-up of a pattern that I think might be approximately the scale that's necessary for this full-size Witch King. I modeled it to fit onto a helmet because originally I was thinking that was going to give me enough height, would be just to have a helmet on my head. But I'm realizing now that's not going to be the case, but it still kind of gives you an idea of how big it might need to be, for the head of someone who's, 7+ feet tall. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to make this out of yet. Most likely it will be a combination of foam, maybe some foam board type stuff. We'll see. I'm going to problem solve that a little bit later on. This is some of my initial patterning for the armor and for the plates on the hands. So the pauldron here, this is definitely going to be out of foam because it's so large. It would not be practical to try to 3D print this like I did for my Edward Elric costume. So this will be different pieces of foam glued together. Got a pretty good pattern going on here. I think it's probably going to work. We'll see once I get a little bit further on in creating the structure underneath the costume. And then I have these lovely leather gloves that I bought, for 15 bucks or so. Obviously, I didn't buy them to fit my hands because those would look out of proportion with this 7-foot tall guy that I'm making here. So I have just a paper mock-up of how I think that the finger plates are going to fit together and then just be attached at the top here. I'm thinking of 3D printing the finger plates because that way I don't have to try to cut each one out of foam. We'll see though. I'm going to try to figure out what's the best option, with the tools that I have available, be it 3D printing or crafting with foam. Obviously, it's going to be lots of fabric construction with this. It's going to be definitely a multimedia project, which is really, really fun because you can just, work with whatever you can find. You're not limited trying to work with just one material. So this paper mock-up I think is going to work pretty well, but I don't want to get too far in any one part of the costume because, if you put all that work into, say, the gloves and then you realize, you made it at the wrong scale or you missed some detail, it's annoying if you get too far at one stage before you've kind of developed the costume overall. So I'm going to work on patterning, the costume as a whole, figuring out what's going to be going on with the drapery for the cloaks, with weapons and scale and all that, and figuring out the armature underneath. So that's where I'm at with patterning. Obviously there's lower plates too. I haven't started on the forearm armor yet. My plan for this helmet, since I'm not going to be using it for the actual Witch King head, I'm hoping to have a pipe or whatnot running up through the top that's attached to the helmet and then attached to kind of a bullet-shaped head at the top. Obviously this is going to be draped over the Witch King head, so you don't need to have an actual head and neck. It's going to be this bullet shape up on top of the shoulders. I'm thinking of having that as its own piece that can turn on top of the shoulders, run the pipe up through here, attach it from my helmet to the Witch King head, so that when I turn my head, his head turns also. I think it would just, be so much more convincing and interesting, but we will see how practical that ends up being as the costume progresses. One other helpful thing that I have here is my male mannequin, which I made a while back. You can check out the tutorial for that if you're interested. he has these nice broad shoulders, which is what I have started using as I'm patterning, because obviously I can't use my own shoulders. That would look ridiculous on the Witch King. But it's nice to have something to put your pattern on and see how it's looking until I have the actual shoulders for the costume created.